In topic two, we're going to look at writing a decimal in words. So I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about how formally we say or write our decimals, okay? So if you were to say 4.25, that's not the most technical, formal way you can say your decimal, but your point is made, okay? With that said, though, you need to know the formal way to say and write decimals, okay? So for topic two, writing a decimal in words, okay? So steps to writing or reading a decimal in words, that should say or. I just saw that. Or reading a decimal in words. Write the whole number part of the word. So whatever is before the decimal, say it just like a typical whole number. Okay, say it or write it just like it's doesn't have a decimal at all. Okay. And then when you get to the actual decimal point, we say the word and. Okay. And then we write the decimal part of the number in words as if it were a whole number, but we know it's not a whole number, but we write it or say it as if it's a whole number. And then we end with the place value of the last digit. So we write or say the number before the decimal, just like a whole number. For the decimal, we say and then for the decimal portion, or for the decimal point, we say and. For the actual decimal portion of the number, write it as if it were a whole number, or say it as if it were a whole number, but just end with the place value of the last digit. Okay? So for example, two, it says write each number in words. We have 980.035. So what we would do is we would go ahead and write 980, just like regular whole number. So let me do this in black. So 900 80. When we get to the decimal point, we want to say and. So we're basically saying the whole number and some fractional portion. So we've got 980 and. Now we've got 035. We don't want to say the O. We just want to say, or the zero. Okay, so if there's a zero between the decimal and the rest of the number, you don't say it. So we're just looking at saying 35, which we know is just 35. So we're going to say 980 and 35. Well, 35 what? So we have to end with the place value of the last digit, which is a 5. So here's what I do. I count the number of decimal places. So I have 3 decimal places. I know that 3 decimal places coincides with the power of 10 that has 3 zeros. So that 5 is in the thousandths place. So I want to say 980 and 35 thousandths. So we always end with the place value of the last digit. So 980 and 35 thousandths. That's the technical way to say this, okay? Now for part B, we have negative 0.0329, okay? So because this number is negative, we do need to say or write negative. So we're going to start with negative, and there's not a whole number, okay? So we don't have to say whole number and. So we kind of skip the first 2 steps. We just want to write the decimal portion as a whole number. So after the decimal, we have 0329. We don't want to worry about the zero. We're just going to say the 329. So we have negative 329. So 329 and every other aspect is just 329. So we're going to say 329. And then we want to make note of the place value of the last digit. So if we look at the number of place values or the number of digits we have after the decimal point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, what power of 10 has 4 zeros? That would be 10,000. So this is negative 329 ten thousandths. So that's all you have. It's not too hard to say them formally. It's kind of a mouthful. Again, if you were to say 980.035, I know what you mean. I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about being formal, but just understand there is a formal, professional way that you would say these numbers. Okay? Now, for example 3, we're going to do the opposite. We have a number written in words. We need to convert it to just its standard form, its number form. So for example 3, it says write each number in standard form. That just means typical numbers with decimal point, the whole bit, okay? Part A, we have 27 and 500ths. So first of all, make note of where and is because that's our decimal point, okay? So we have a decimal point right here. Now before the decimal, we just have 27. Well, we would write that as 27. That's easy enough, right? And then we have 500ths. You need to really resist the urge of writing 500 because a lot of students are like, well, this is 27.500. No, it's not. It's 27 and 5 hundredths. So let's think about what number of zeros we have in 100. Well, in 100, we have two zeros. So that tells me I'm going to have two decimal places, okay? And remember, we always say the place value of the last digit. So that 5 has to be the last digit. It has to be in the hundredths place, okay? So if we have 5 hundredths, we would put the 5 there, and then if there's space between that last digit and the decimal, you would just fill it in with a 0. So we get 27.05, which is technically going to be pronounced or written or read as 27 and 5 hundredths. So be really careful when converting from words to decimals or to numbers, okay? For part B, we have 357 and 183 ten thousandths, okay? So let's start with the stuff before the decimal point. So we've got our decimal point. Before the word and, we have 357. Well, 357 is just 357, so it's 357, okay? Now, after the word and, we have, excuse me, we have 183 ten thousandths. So let's think about ten thousandths. Ten thousandths coincides with 10,000, the number. 10,000, the number, has 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. Excuse me. So that tells me I need 4 decimal places. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, after the decimal, or after the word and, we have 183 ten thousandths. Okay? So 183, the last digit of 183 has to be in that last place value spot. So it has to be the last digit. So I would put 183 and then just fill in a 0 between the decimal and the 1. So this quite literally reads 357 and 183 ten thousandths. That's the place value of the 3. Okay, so make sure, even though I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about how formally we say numbers, know that there is a formal way, there is a professional way, there is a right way to say, read, or write numbers. Okay?